Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Shake, you guys. What is happening? I know what's not happening in Texas. Uh, they are not following logic, and we are in trouble. We are in a lot of trouble. However, thank God for people like my guest tonight, because they will help us get out of this pandemic safely and alive and vaccinated. I have a very special guest today. I am very, very excited to have him on. He's a professor at the University of Washington and Seattle Children's Research Institute. He is a returning guest, and I'm very excited to have him back. Don Sodora, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So swapped out your shirt. You got all spiffy. I like it.
Yeah. I don't know if I need this button though.
No, you're fine. No,
kind of like this.
No. We want you to be nice and cash. Don Sodora, I am very, very nervous about what the governor of Texas has announced today. Governor Abbott came out today and said that he's lifting all mask mandates. He's going to open the business up. Every business is going to go back to being open 100% come next Wednesday. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you don't even need my thoughts. The head of the CDC just yesterday said now is not the time to open up our states. So she was asking all the governors to please wait. And the thing is, it's not like she's asking them to wait for a year. It's just, we're talking about May, April even might have been just fine because right now I think we're at 12 or 13% of the population vaccinated. We're doing great, and there's so many people vaccinated every day, and the level of viremia, of cases are going down.
That's right.
So yeah, I don't understand what in the heck. I don't understand it. It makes no sense scientifically.
So if he sounds pretty determined to going ahead and opening up all of Texas, which is a horrifying thought to me, we're probably going to see a significant spike in cases again.
Yeah. It's not if it was April 15th, I would say maybe not, but March, what is it? 4th, 3rd? I don't know what the date is. Yeah. March 2nd. Yeah, there's definitely for sure going to be a spike. People are going to die. It's for no reason. It's really it's just.
44,000 Texans have died because of COVID thus far. They just had 8,100 new cases that were informed this past weekend. And here we have somebody like Governor Abbott just going ahead. Florida is another horrible situation. Governor DeSantis is like, pandemic? What pandemic? Let's just open everything up and let's just let it run through people. Don, when you hear stuff like this, as a professor and someone who is, who does work with the infectious diseases and stuff, what kind of goes through your mind? Do you think these governors are thinking that this is some kind of a federal government like conspiracy to like just keep people down so you're like can't go back to business, or these people are actually, what's the word, stupid?
I hate to. I'm not going to say the second, but I'm not going to say either of those.
I'll say it for the rest of us. I'll say it.
When there's politics involved, people are making decisions based on what they think is politically in their best interest. Now, the ethics. I'm wondering if there's an ethical issue here because all of these politicians are probably vaccinated at this point, so the risk to them and maybe even their families might be minimal by opening up the state. I don't know if anybody's going to test that or check that or if it's anything there, but
yeah,
it's really.
Trump and Melania were vaccinated before they left the White House.
Yeah, they had COVID as well, which would have given them some protection against theoretically against a future infection. But right. It's just a shame. It's just like, why can't they just wait a month? It's just a month.
Right. Don, just today, the Biden administration came out and said, they're saying that initially they were saying that people should be pretty vaccinated. All adults in America would be vaccinated by July, but they literally, moved it, to May now. They're saying that all adults. How are you kind of feeling about that? Do you think that's a possibility, or they're just trying to give people hope to be like, just hang on?
No, I think they can. It can be done. It can be done. The states need to. We need to basically. So the hard part is the prioritization. I think I might have even talked about this a little bit in October. The hard part is figuring out how many priorities you're going to do, right? Because every time you have a group of people that you want to get vaccinated, and then another group of people, and then another group, each one takes like a month, right? So if you keep having, and some of these are critical, like the first one was healthcare workers that see COVID patients and nursing homes people. Beautiful. Sure. The second one was all healthcare workers, people over 75. Beautiful. And now it's like they want to open it up to essential workers, which is important. I think teachers should have been in that second group. I think I would have done all teachers by now. That today, Biden actually announced he wants teachers to be moved up in priority. I don't know what in the heck they were waiting. I don't know how that wasn't a thing that was already done. But anyway, sure. But if you like what Alaska's doing, Alaska announced today they're doing, well, they have a lot less people and they have a lot of vaccine, but they're going to do everybody over the age of 40.
Okay.
Right. So once you do like by age and you stop doing it by profession or by, you're just doing age, right? You're just saying everybody, you don't have to do 40. We can't do 40, right? We would do 55 or whatever, or 60, whatever. Doesn't matter. Pick a number. But once you pick an age, it's so easy because everybody understands it, right? You're 60 or over, you go and you get a vaccine.
That's right.
If you're not 60 and over, you wait a month and then they'll do 50 and over and then you go. So and then it goes really, really fast, right? Yeah. Because you don't have to, there's not this like, you go on the website now, it's like, is it my turn? When do I go? Am I tier 1B or tier 1, B plus or whatever, and people don't know, and it's crazy, and it's difficult for people. But if you just do age, simple. 40, they're doing. Alaska's doing everybody over 40 and all teachers.
Okay.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Don, have you been vaccinated? I mean, you work in a hospital.
I have. Yeah. So I work in a hospital, and I do work with COVID. I have been vaccinated. I got the Pfizer vaccine. I got 2 doses. The side effects on the first dose were minimal. Side effects on the second dose were more fatigue, but it's just one day. It's like one day where you're tired. Yeah. People have, there's a range of symptoms. Sure. I was in the moderate range.
Yeah.
But it's so much better than getting a COVID infection. Just not even in the same ballpark.
Sure. I mean, Don, when you said once you get vaccinated, let's say once you have your second vaccination in, is that protecting you then from variant strains that are now popping up that they're talking about, that are here? What does that do? Let's get into that.
So I have some slides that I can show to kind of get into this. So the variant strains, I worry because people are hearing it over the media and they're hearing it, the term that somebody came up with, I don't know who is, variants, and then the other term is scariants. So it's like the media, when the media talks about them, they talk about them, and to get people attention, they want to get people to watch their broadcasts. Mm-hmm. And so, you'll hear, the Brazil variant was just isolated or just identified in Washington State or in Los Angeles area. And it's like, and it'll be like on the news and it'll be a big thing. Well, what does it mean? Okay, you identified a variant in a place.
Yes. What does it mean, Don?
What does it mean? So do you want me to? I could do it because we could show a slide and then I can come back and chat with you. Want to do it that way?
Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't we do? I want to do 3 slides. Let's try 3.
Okay, I'm down. Let's do it.
Let's try 3. Let me start by sharing. Let's see.
And now, just to give everybody an idea, Don, what are these slides and what are we looking at?
I'm going to show 3. Well, I'll start with 2 slides. Start with 2 slides. First slide is going to be what's going on with regard to the pandemic right now,
Uh-huh.
to show why Texas making this decision is a bad idea.
Yeah.
And the second slide is going to be about how the virus goes from the first person infected to today. So, we're not going to get into variants exactly on these two slides, but it'll kind of get us started.
Got it. Got it.
I'm hoping it's going to make for a good conversation.
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe a few jokes. I don't know.
I'm all about that life, Don. Let's bring it on. All right, here we go.
All right, so I'm going to try to do this like this.
Okay.
And so this now is the current pandemic as it's this is from the WHO. It's a weekly COVID report, COVID cases and deaths through the 21st of February. And what you can see from this is what happened the first time people were getting infected back in March and April. And you can see the different colors represent different parts of the world. Well, we'll say March and April, then we're going to look at the summer, then we're going to look at current, okay? And then yellow is the Americas, so it includes the United States, of course. Southeast Asia is in purple, Europe's in green, dark green, Eastern Mediterranean, light green, Africa, and then Western Pacific, okay? And what's interesting is you can see the first people that were infected back in early March, the number of cases are pretty low, but the number of deaths are pretty high. And the reason this is twofold, partly because we didn't have a good way of actually screening people back then to actually identify the number of cases. Most of these are people coming into hospitals. And so we're not catching everybody that's infected. And the second reason this is doing this is because we didn't have a good way of actually treating people. We put a lot of people on the ventilators, and that turned out to be not the doctors now, they hold off on that until people are really, really sick, and then they put them on. Where that was more of a default early on because they just didn't know.
And you're saying that was a cause that caused people's death because they were put on ventilators early on.
It's not it didn't cause deaths. People were they had a higher chance of survival if they were able to stay off the ventilator. That's all. It's just about percentages and risk. That's all.
I would think it would be the opposite. I would think that, a lot of people did need the ventilator because you can't breathe. I mean, that affects your lungs, but it's not the case.
When you get that bad, then you need to go on. But what they were doing is they were putting people on before they were at the super severe stage. They were putting them on when they were severe or almost severe, right? It's just a matter of when you decide to put people on the ventilator. It went from the default to the let's wait. Okay, but let's put them on a ventilator.
Got it.
That's the difference there.
Got it.
The mid part here is the bump that we saw in July and August. Now you can see the cases going up. You see the deaths are they go down a little bit, but then they go back up again. And then so this was our summer. And then remember we had the early fall where the number of cases were going down. If you look at this is the United States. If you think about the yellow, number of cases going down, things were looking pretty good for a little bit of while. And then all of a sudden they started going back up again. This is Thanksgiving. This is Christmas. And then we got this huge number of cases. So this is number of cases per week. This is in the millions now, right? Wow. Here it's down in the hundreds of thousands, right? For the whole world. And now the number of deaths just crazy high. This is on this graph here, 100,000 deaths per week. Just insane. And so you can see things are getting better, right? Look at how good things are. And this is what a governor that doesn't understand public health or viruses might look at and say, oh, look, things are really good. Let's open everything up. But the reality is it's still worse than it was in the summer. And if you look at the deaths, they're still worse than they were any time except for after Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I mean, we just hit a milestone of 500,000 people.
500,000 people have passed away in this country alone. It's crazy. It's sad and crazy.
Wow. Don, how is it that when we look at Africa has very low cases? How come?
Mostly because they just don't have the ability to actually screen enough people. The number of death count is usually pretty accurate because they'll screen people in the hospitals there, but they're not like us where people are driving up or walking up or riding up or whatever, however they get around there, and actually being able to get tested just relatively easily. It doesn't exist in most countries in Africa, and so you get a smaller case count.
Got
But
it.
overall, the developing countries, low income countries, with a few exceptions, are actually doing okay so far. We really worry because we need to get the vaccines in there before things go crazy there,
Right.
which could easily happen.
Right. I mean, even if Southeast Asia has, they had a bit of a spike in October. I see that's the purple, right? That
Purple.
spike, and their cases have been going down. I mean, the United States, the Americas, holds the highest number of cases. It seems.
Yeah, I mean we're number one, United States of America.
Hey, we
We're
always want to be number one in everything, right?
we're number one in something. It's us in Europe, really, where where a lot of the cases are, and we can hypothesize as to why these two areas were hit so hard. Certainly, policies were a problem. Travel, I mean, some people might say that our lifestyle or what I don't know anything about all that. I mean, um, but certainly, our public health policies were not optimum at all.
Right,
Just not optimum.
right, absolutely. Do you have this is the second? We have a second slide, right?
Second slide for now, so that we could chat. Then we could chat some more.
Yeah.
In this slide, what I'm doing is I'm showing a little bit about how everything gets started. This was actually my lab did this whole slide, and I actually had my my daughter actually did the graphics. She's a graphic artist.
Wow.
So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through, so it's November or October maybe 2019. And this virus lives probably in a bat, probably it's almost definitely somewhere in China, near Wuhan, probably. And this bat is this virus from this bat is somehow going to, whether it's in a market or whether animals are interacting in the wild and then they're being taken so people can eat them. So they have these wet markets in China where all these different animals are just housed one after the other. Cage of bats next to a cage of just any kind of animal from the area.
Yeah.
They don't eat pandas. I'm not going to say that, but I mean, the different animals that you can come and you can buy: chickens, ducks. But they also eat an animal called a pangolin, which is shown here, or depicted by my stepdaughter. And these are really cool little animals that are found in Asia and in Africa as well. And they'll keep them in cages, and the bats could be right next to them. And the idea that they think what happened. So this is the ongoing hypothesis. This was what they came up with. They don't, nobody knows for sure anything, right? This is just what they think. Is that a bat virus? And I'm showing this as a light green color, and came in contact with a coronavirus, so bat coronavirus, with a pangolin coronavirus. And I'm showing that by this dark green color. And now imagine that the pangolin coronavirus by itself, that can't actually get into people. That's shown by this X. But imagine that if you combine the bat coronavirus with the pangolin coronavirus, now you have a virus that can actually replicate in people.
Interesting.
But it doesn't do it very well. And so it needs more mutations or more variants, if you think about it, to actually be able to really replicate well in people. So that's shown by the yellow color. So this represents the RNA of the virus, this little arrow, and the green represents the part from the bat. The dark green represents the part from the pangolin, and the orange represents the parts that are, I can blow it up a little bit. The orange represents the part that's from, that's just occurring to help it replicate in people. And when it gets to a certain point, it's able to spread pretty well. And now all of a sudden you start seeing lots and lots of people infected. And that's shown by this part of the graphic here. And then I just list a bunch of the people that we know of that became infected, that are famous. And I put in a couple comedians for you, Mona.
Kevin Hart, yeah. Kanye West, and also amazing comedian.
He's
very funny guy. He's very funny. Married a Kardashian, and now he's nuts. Yeah.
I heard they got a divorce.
Say that again?
I hear they're getting a divorce. Did you hear that? Do they live
Yeah,
near you?
that's what the Kardashians do. Yeah, a guy walks in normal and then he walks out, with issues. That's what the Kardashian power is.
Nice.
How interesting. So I knew, we've all heard about the coronavirus coming from bat. I didn't know that the coronavirus from the bat alone wasn't strong enough to get into the human immune system. So it had to basically tag along with the pangolin coronavirus. Can you repeat that? And that's the human adaptive mutation. So the two combined, then they mutated in order to get
Yeah.
into the human immune system.
Yeah, imagine that there's somebody working. Imagine this happens at what we call the places where they sell these animals. So a wet market, they call it, right? It just means that the animals are alive. That's all. That means. So and imagine it gets into somebody and just one person, and that one person, there's a mutation that occurs that makes it pass easily to his wife or to his kid, who passed it to their friend. But maybe it's just barely getting passed. Maybe people aren't getting that sick. Maybe, but as it's in the first couple rounds, as it's going, this first couple people, it's actually developing enough mutations to allow it to now be easily transmitted.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the mutation got a little out of control. Can you zoom out a little bit? Yeah, I see some writing you have here. Many different coronaviruses replicate in bats. The passing of a bat virus into an intermediate host, such as pangolin, gives an opportunity for the virus to change. Got it. Okay, in fact, 113 million worldwide. Yeah, I mean, I've, Don, when Trump was in power, he talked a great deal about calling it the Wuhan, and whatever. He had all these horrific kind of racist names that he was throwing out for this virus. But my question, I guess, is that are we this hypothesis? Is it pretty sure that it's indeed just the pangolin, or is it other animals too that are also carrying this virus?
The other two times that the SARS virus, that the coronavirus jumped from the bats to people, there was always an intermediate host each time. But I don't know that it has to have an intermediate host, but the other two times there were, and we actually identified them. So the one time was MERS, it was called. I'm trying to remember the years. The first was SARS-CoV-1 was the first one. We just called it SARS. And I think that was like 2003. And I think MERS was 2008 or 9. And they were both coronaviruses. The first one, they found that it went from a bat to what they thought was a civet cat, which is, we don't know what those are. They live in China, and obviously they're in the wet market. Okay. So that was the combination that they think resulted in that virus being able to transmit to people.
Uh-huh.
And the second one, it was from a bat to a camel virus, and that's what combined to make the MERS, which was Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome.
Oh,
That one actually started in the Middle East.
Uh-huh.
But it was also a coronavirus.
Sorry, so the MERS is from bat to a camel? Am I understanding?
That's what they think. Yeah, they think they all start in bats. So they basically, the idea, the gestalt. So the data for this all is of course, we're trying to figure it all out.
Sure.
But the thinking is that the bats, they live in caves. They're all together, and they can easily pass different viruses and bacteria to each other.
Right.
Coronaviruses are one of the viruses that they pass to each other. And so any bat colony probably has lots of different coronaviruses just kind of hanging out. They probably it's probably not a respiratory virus. It's probably a digestive tract virus. Mm-hmm. So they're probably infecting cells in the gut, and they probably just clear the virus over a period of time. And they get a little sick for a bat, but they're fine. They probably don't kill the bats. They just live in harmony. It's only when they jump hosts that they actually result in death. One thing I want you to remember from this, if you remember nothing else, remember that viruses don't actually want to kill you. No virus wants to kill any host. It's just an outcome that happens. That's just an unfortunate outcome that the virus didn't try to do. It just happened.
So it's like a Kardashian.
It's like a Kardashian. Well, the Kardashians don't kill people, but they do mess with our minds.
Yeah, they're not intending to act actually for you to end up in a mental hospital, but you will. Like bats and Kardashians, very similar, very very similar.
They live in groups.
Live in groups, prey on people. That's wonderful. That's great. Don, one of the things I was watching was I forget, there was this British doctor. He was in Wuhan, and he was talking about how there is a bat cave in China where people go and take tours. And because there are the bat droppings that, of course, take place because the cave is filled with bats, and they're talking about that all it takes is one person to walk around and inhale, whatever is in the, that COVID that we're talking about, the coronavirus, you bring it back home, it's mutating, you're breathing. Next thing you know, your husband has it, your kids have it, your parents have it. How is that so much different than what you just explained?
It's totally possible. I mean, so by that, the only difference is that you've removed the intermediate host, right? In this case, that's the pangolin, is what I just showed. The civet cat, the camel. You've removed that intermediate host where you have two. In those cases, you have two coronaviruses, one in each host. One's in the bat, one's in the pangolin. The bat one goes into the pangolin. So the two of them are living together for a little bit. There's a recombination event that happens, and a little piece of the pangolin virus gets on the bat, gets in with the bat virus, and that's what then goes to people. So that's what I just showed, right?
Got it.
And what you're saying is that the bat virus itself might be infectious enough, especially if you inhale enough of it, to actually get that first infection.
Yes.
Which could then be transmitted. The only thing that would go against that is that the coronavirus outbreaks don't happen very often. You would think that if it was that easy to get a coronavirus from a bat, that it would happen. Like you said, there's tours. All these bats have coronaviruses, we believe, or at least it's a high frequency. It would just happen so frequently. So that's the only thing I would say that it probably is not true, but there's no way to know for sure.
Don, there's also a lot of conversation. I think that this is, I guess, goes back to the Trump era of misinformation. But some people think that people in China have been consuming bats, and that could also be a cause, which I don't believe that people are consuming bats. They might be consuming pangolins, but not bats, right?
They do eat bats. They do.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah, but if you cook them,
so if a bat has coronavirus,
cooked meat is fine, right? And they're usually not in the blood, so you'd have to come into contact with the feces in a way that was going to get into your body.
Okay,
it's possible that it's not impossible, but remember the wet markets are there's pictures of online if you want to see.
I've seen them.
Bats in cages and next to the chickens and stuff. It's not.
Yes. So I mean, okay. So let's say if somebody's making a bat soup, okay, and they washed it, whatever, that the bat's dead. They washed it up. They made a soup out of it, and they're eating bat soup, okay. But the coronavirus that's living in the bat cannot actually give you COVID and coronavirus if you're consuming it, in the sense that it would become deadly or it would become, contagious. Would it?
It's if you're cooking it, it's not
right.
infectious.
Precisely.
Anything it's cooked is not. You're safe. It's the processing. It's when you're cutting the bat with the knife and you're cleaning out the whatever you do, however you prepare a bat
to cook.
Never did it myself. Sure. That's when you could theoretically come in contact with the virus because it's not cooked yet.
Because it's airborne at that time.
No, it'd be on your hands, and then you'd touch your face or your nose or whatever.
But you just mentioned that it would be if you had come in contact with their feces. You said. Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to be more general, but if you're cleaning a bat, there's going to be, if you're cleaning out the inside, whatever, there's going to be potential coronaviruses in different tissues.
Yeah,
It could
I'm not
definitely.
actually asking for a bat soup recipe. Please,
I think you are. That's what I was getting. I was I was starting to Google it.
not interested in bat soup. I'm pretty adventurous, but I have to draw the line somewhere. Bat soup is kind of where I draw the line. Um,
Batman would not like that.
no. So, Don, let's go back to this thing that you were saying that the media is using the word variant, and you are very kind of shy about using that word. Why is that? Why? What term
So
would you use for that?
I would say that the word variant's okay.
Okay.
I think using is fine. It's just that the way that they make it's the way that they say it. Like, the way it's like the breaking news, variant from England found in, you know, Seattle, Washington. It's like until we really understand how the presence of the variant influences the pandemic
Uh-huh.
and whether or not the vaccines can or cannot protect against it. I would call it concern, right? They're called variants of concern. There's a certain number of them. I have a figure if we get to it. So if it's a variant of concern, which means that it might be more easily transmitted, or it might be able to avoid antibody responses that you've made when you were infected before, then okay, now it's a variant of concern. Now we need to be concerned. We don't need to panic. There's still not a variant of panic. It's like,
So there's no variant of panic right now. Is that what you're saying?
there's no reason to panic. We need to just, let me say it another way. Masks still work. Social distancing still works.
That's correct.
The variants don't stop any of that from working. And so they should just keep doing that. And so far, the vaccines seem to be working okay.
Right. I have a question here regarding the vaccine. James says, yesterday my sister told me her family doctor is advising women of childbearing age to wait for the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. I understood the reason to be that there is a question about how messenger RNA affects ovaries. Has Dr. Sodora heard anything about this? Dr. Sodora?
I have not heard anybody say anything about women of childbearing age not getting Moderna and Pfizer vaccines. There's no evidence that I have seen that that the mRNA is getting to ovaries. So mRNA, right? It's a little molecule that's very what's the word? I was going to say labile because that's the word we use. It doesn't last very long in your body. Okay, so when you're given the mRNA vaccine, it's given to your muscle, right? It's going to be in your arm, and it's going to stay there. It's going to make protein, and it's going to get your immune system to be specific to one protein, which is the spike protein of the coronavirus SARS-CoV-2, which is COVID-19. The inability of that mRNA to get to their ovaries, I don't see how that would happen, at least in any large amount. I don't know why it would be a bad thing for that to happen. Have not seen any data along those lines, and certainly there's many, many, many women getting vaccinated. All the women in healthcare and other groups that are getting vaccinated of childbearing age that are doing just fine.
Yeah.
So I've not heard that.
I mean, what if, like, look, if you're childbearing age, you go get the Johnson and Johnson vaccine that he's referring to. To wait for the Johnson and Johnson. So if they're getting Moderna or Pfizer, I mean, there's no way for these women to know immediately if they can get pregnant or not. I mean, there's no, like, unless they're trying and they're in the middle of getting it and then not getting pregnant and they're like, I don't know, I got the vaccine and now I can't get pregnant. But you're saying that you haven't heard or come across yourself personally around any kind of information this way.
I have not. There's ultrasounds that they can do to see that that your ovaries are producing eggs and that there's menstrual cycles are happening as normal, and there are ways of knowing that things are normal, but there's whether or not there's actual data saying that a woman that was vaccinated twice has gotten pregnant. I don't know that data exists either, but we've been vaccinated so many people by now. We would know if there was a problem here. This is the thing. A lot of these these conspiracy theory-esque type things that people were worried about, I mean, they were more concerned back in November when all we had was clinical data from a clinical trial. Now
Mhm.
we've vaccinated millions of people. If there was a problem, we would know. I mean, uh, I know it's only been a few months, but even something like this, we would know. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
and there's no reason. We have so many vaccines out there that are not exactly like this, but they're in similar kind of veins of this, and they don't have any problems with ovaries.
Right.
I appreciate the question. I appreciate the ability to answer the question.
No, I like it. Let's move on to the next slide.
Next slide is gonna be where I'm gonna start to get you ready for the variant slide.
All right, let's
Um,
go.
let's I'm gonna teach you as best I can about a virus. Oh,
Yeah.
we're still on the pangolin slide here. I gotta move it. About the virus and about the RNA. So
Okay, here we go.
on this slide, I am showing what a cartoon depiction of a virus looks like. I could have put an electron micrograph too. They kind of look like this in the electron microscope too. It's actually, but now you can actually see everything really clearly. And then the key elements of a virus in cartoon form are the protein on the outside that allows the virus to enter your cells. It's called the spike protein. The envelope, which is this brownish ring. And then you have these yellowy rings underneath, which represent this nucleocapsid part of the virus, this kind of protein coat. And all of this, the goal of all of these things is to protect the nucleic acid, which sits in the middle. And that's that little springy looking stuff. And that is the RNA genome. And so this is a virus that's made out of RNA. And you can see the different types of proteins or different things that are depicted here as colors. And you see that the spike protein is in red.
Mhm.
And the RNA as a molecule. And this RNA is also depicted here. This is from the New York Times, by the way. This is a really nice article that they had. The RNA is depicted here. This is the same exact thing here. Here it's in this little squirrely form because this is how it would be compacted in a virus. But if you stretch it out in a circle and you add in these little labels that show the different names of the different proteins that exist, you can see how they all fit around and where the spike protein actually is. So what we want to do to find variants is we want to sequence this. And then we want to see how different the new sequence of, say, a variant from Los Angeles is from a variant in, say, Seattle or wherever. Let's just stick with Los Angeles and Seattle for now. And the RNA is made up of these base pairs, and you could sequence them because we know that there's 4 different base pairs. They could be A, C, G, U, and then you can identify the sequence, and then you can put it in a computer, and then you can line things. And so the variants are identified in this way. This is when I see a variant, when they say they found a variant, this is how they do it. Let me show you one variant, and let me show you what the changes are and how it has affected the United States. And this will be we'll take a break after this slide.
Okay.
This variant is called B.1.17. B.1.17 is the variant originally from England. This is a more highly transmittable virus. This is more, in other words, if you were standing 3 feet from somebody with no mask on and you had this variant and the other person did not have any coronavirus and you were speaking, they'd be more likely to get this variant transmitted from you to them as opposed to the original variant, the original SARS-CoV-2 that was first isolated back in February.
Got it.
More transmissible. So, and what happens? And so you can identify actual mutations, and that's these little lines that come out onto this circle. And these mutations give you like a footprint or a fingerprint. A fingerprint, it's easier. So the fingerprint of these particular mutations. And the way this is read is, let's pick one here, N501Y. Okay. So this just tells you that there's an amino acid depicted by the N that's position 501 that is transferred, that is now a Y in this new variant. That's all that is. It's just simple code to tell somebody who's sequencing what they should look for.
Okay.
So the RNA is sequenced. They can convert that to what amino acids would be there, and that's what you look at. So you can count how many mutations might this fingerprint looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a deletion. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And there's a bunch in here. So I think there's a total of, if I'm not mistaken, 13, 14, 15, 17 different mutations that make up the B117 variant.
Wow.
And
17 mutations. Wow.
And so one of these or two of these or all of these might be involved in the increased transmission.
Right.
So what happens when you have increased transmission is that eventually, because it has a slightly easier chance of being transmitted, it eventually starts taking over wherever it gets introduced. And it got introduced into the United States of America. And so you can see here by this map, this is a recent map, that shows where the virus variant was detected. Let me see if I blow it up a little bit more. And which states have more than 100 cases.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already detected in Washington, California, and then you can see there's a couple of states that has not been detected. Now it's hard to know if it has not been detected because they're not sequencing enough viruses or why, right? But they haven't been detected. But you can see it's replicating really well in New York, Michigan, Georgia, Florida, California.
Right.
And so this is what happens when you get these mutations. It allows it to be transmitted from one person to another more easily. So does that mean that people are more likely to get sick or die? By definition, if more people are getting infected, then more people can die. But I don't know, there's no evidence that I have seen that any of these variants cause increase in, well, I think there's one that might. But it's a low chance. It's really about getting the virus going from one person to another and less about it actually making you sicker, right? But if you have more people, again, instead of getting 100 people infected, you get 500 people infected, and 1.5% of the people are going to die of the virus.
Right.
More people are going to die of the virus.
Because the X factor is their immune system, their underlying health issues, whatever it is, right? I mean, you can have 10 healthy people that can get it, and then they're asymptomatic or have mild symptoms, and then pass it on to someone with, a compromised immune system, somebody who's going through a chemo, or, an older person. And sadly, that may result in death for them. Yeah. But the healthy person just had slight symptoms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, more people getting infected, more chance it's going to get to that person that has the chance of getting really sick.
Right. What I'm trying to understand is the variant. The reason it's evolving, or the reason the variant comes in, is because it's just trying to survive. So while it's trying to survive, it's just trying to amp up its survival. So it's just like, oh, if I go to this host, my survival goes down. So I'm just going to amp up my toxicity to survive, because I need to survive and I need to stick to the host and I need to get as many hosts as I can. Am I understanding this correctly?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it as an evolutionary kind of a thing, right? So evolution is about selection of fitter variants, selection of fitter mutations. So if you get a mutation, which is random, that you just happen to get that N501Y mutation, it just happens to happen, it's virus is replicating and one virus gets this mutation randomly. But that results in a virus that's more easily transmitted from one person to another. Then you have an advantage. And once you have an advantage, then you can see that would be the one that actually takes over in an area. So it's kind of like what you're saying, but it's less about the anthropomorphizing the virus and more about just kind of like just happenstance. And it just happens to be that now it's more transmittable.
Got it. So this new variant that they're talking about now, you and I kind of had a brief conversation yesterday, and you mentioned that what this new variant is that they're referring to is that before you could, before you could stand, 3 feet apart from, and both people could be masked and not get it. But now, because the variant is amped up, I guess, in my kind of layman terms, even though you have a mask, you have a higher chance of getting it. So you have to, that's why do go back to that 6 feet distancing, right?
So I would take the mask out of that equation. I think the mask is working just fine for each person. I
Okay.
would say to make it the way I would think about it is just think about people standing apart from each other with no masks. It's just easier. So
Got it.
imagine they're 3 feet apart, right? And now you can transmit the original variant. Now this new one, B.117, you could be 6 feet apart, 8 feet apart, or 10 feet apart, and you can still transmit. Think of it that way. I'm not saying that this is true. I'm
Mhm.
just saying it's an easy way to kind of visualize what
Got it.
increased transmission. So in reality, it's fewer numbers of virus particles getting from one person to another. So whether you inhale them, right? So you're inhaling, you can inhale as few as, let's say, 10 virus particles of B.117 and be infected. But for the original one, you needed to inhale 50, right? That's kind of like another way to think about it. It's like how many, what's your dose? What's your dose that you would need? It's
Right.
like the Kardashians again with the, how much
How
booze they would. There must be something with the Kardashians we can come up with here.
the potents, I mean, they're a virus to the society too. Um, yeah, so you're talking about the potency of it, the potency of the virus. Is that a right term to use?
Yeah. So the terms that I get your words are good. They're good words, but it indicates. So what I'm trying to do is try to put in a kind of a I don't want it. Well, I don't want it to come across that to anyone that I'm saying that these are super viruses, because they're not. They're just selected to be transmitted from one person to another. The way I can tell you how it probably is working, because we have some idea. It has to do with that spike protein, and it has to do with the ability of that spike protein to find a receptor on your cell to infect, and
Right.
how well the two things bind to each other.
Right.
So you could think so the word potency, the problem with the word potency is it seems like it's like, oh, it's an amping up. It seems like you're making something stronger, but it's not getting any stronger. It's just selecting to bind better to humans, to basically to be transmitted easier to humans. It's just this is what happened. If we were able to keep the number of virus replications down in the world,
Yeah.
we wouldn't see nearly as many viruses or variants.
Right. And that's the more disturbing part about what Governor Abbott of Texas is coming and doing. I mean, come next Wednesday, he's opening up all of Texas. It's going back to 100%. All businesses are being opened. I think they're probably going to try to tell the kids to go back to school, which is horrifying. I mean, I can't imagine being a parent and sending my kid to school without my teachers being vaccinated, without me being vaccinated, without my kid being vaccinated. I mean, I don't even know what's going to happen. Sadly, today I was social distancing and getting my nails done because I didn't want to look like an absolute animal on screen. And they had Fox News on, which I don't understand why they had Fox News on. And on Fox News, the amount of bullshit, which is I'm going to call, that they're putting out there, they're like, oh my God, these kids, they're devastated. These kids are devastated. And look, I have a lot of compassion. This is must be so hard for the kids. They were talking about this one kid. He took his own life. He was a teenage kid. He took his own life. He must be suffering from severe depression. And I mean, my heart goes out to his family and, and
Absolutely.
the kind of loss they've experienced. But they were taking this one case and saying, oh my God, so much trauma going around, so much depression going around. Nobody's denying about the depression part. Nobody's denying about how hard it has been for the kids and the parents. They're working, trying to take care of the kids and all that. But what's worse, like staying safe, keep staying at home until you get vaccinated, and then safely going out there and safely reopening your state, or just throwing your kids out in the line of fire, hoping that they're not going to get sick, hoping that they're not going to die.
Yeah, no, you make good points. I mean, I just want to say that my personal way I think about it is I don't like the way that they have schools and restaurants and gyms kind of all together. Like they're gonna, like, I don't like policy. I'm going to disagree with you only slightly. I don't like that the policies are equal to all three, because it's not clear that that spreading is actually equal in all three. Restaurants, bars, lots of spreading. Gyms spreading. In-home, like people meeting in houses and like taking off masks, and like lots of spreading. Schools that have been actually the ones that do it correctly, and they have plastic barriers and masks, and they keep the kids, walking apart. There's actually been a relatively small amount of transmission. It's still a risk. I agree with you about the risk. If it was me and it was April 2020, I would have basically focused my energy on getting K through 8 back at school. I would have focused money about ventilation, given the give the teachers the money they need. I mean, some teachers they won't be able to go back for their age or whatever, and figure out a way to either pay them or have them work from home. Like just they come up with ways to get the kids at least somewhat back at school. And the thing is, it was doable. I mean, it's more doable now. If you can vaccinate the teachers, so much better. But yeah, I think of those things as all different, right? I mean, the schools are a higher priority, and so we should put more energy to that. As restaurants, I would have just paid the restaurants to stay closed. I would have got money. If you're going to put all that money out there, I mean, why not just pay employees and restaurants to stay closed, or to just have takeout or whatever?
Right.
And then you don't have to worry about that part.
I was in Malibu this past Sunday, and we were passing through Santa Monica, and it was packed again. No social distancing. People were wearing masks ish. Restaurants are packed outside. They're trying to do social distancing, but I don't see much of a social distancing thing going on. And I look at that and I say to myself, we're going to have spiked cases again. I mean, here we are. We're like kind of going back to the same thing. I mean, when you hear stuff like that, okay, so let's say come end of May, that's what Biden's saying. Come end of May, every single adult in America has been vaccinated. Okay, everybody's been vaccinated. Now, and I'm just talking about adults. So the kids or the teenagers are still vulnerable, right? Their immune systems have not been, protected yet with a vaccine. So what does that mean? The kids can still pass it along to each other, right?
Yeah. Thankfully, there's not a high incidence of severe or even moderate disease in the kids, but it happens. Kids can get sick. So they still need to spend the money on the ventilation and the distancing and everything. That's going to have to be part of it. I mean, I don't know if we're going to be able to get all the kids vaccinated by September even, right? So I think they need to really think of long. And look, let's face it, if they can get the schools ventilated better, and they can get the kids used to being a little bit less kind of like wrestly or spitting at whatever the kids do, you might have less flu. Influenza might be lower next year. There's benefits. There's all kinds of benefits to this. This is good money. This is money well spent.
Right.
But yeah, I worry. I worry about the kids. I do worry about the kids. I wish there was an easier solution.
Okay, so let's go with everybody's been vaccinated. Adults, kids, elderly, social workers.
It will never be everybody, but go ahead. It'll be 80% probably.
80.
20% are not going to do it.
Okay, so I'll go with 95% of people in America, American citizens, have been vaccinated. 95.
Huh? We're not going to get, because of anti-vax and whatever, we're not going to get 95.
So we'll go 80. Okay, so we'll stick with your 80, okay? So we get 80% of people vaccinated. Dr. Fauci was talking about if we can get, a lot of people, majority of the people vaccinated, then he's talking about herd immunity, right? So the 20% of people who are anti-vaxxers, who don't want to get vaccinated, probably are not going to get their kids vaccinated. So the pandemic is just going to keep going then. Is it not just going to keep perpetuating? So we still have to wear masks. We still have to do social distancing. Like life will never go back to the way it was.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
Because it'll be herd. So herd immunity is a real thing. So basically, these vaccines are really good. All three of them are really good. once people are vaccinated, so now they're starting to loosen up and give people guidance about what happens when two people that are vaccinated come together, or four people that are vaccinated come together. So by vaccinated, I mean 2 doses of a Moderna or Pfizer, or 1 dose of Johnson and Johnson, and then waiting the period of time after that. So it's 2 weeks after the Moderna and the Pfizer until your antibody levels get high enough, right? Sure. So you 2 people that have been vaccinated, they come together and they're going to meet for a dinner party to have dinner or whatever. Don't need masks. So that's the guidance that's going to come out. I don't think it's out right now from CDC. Tony Fauci's saying it, but he's saying it hesitantly. And then it'll be 4 people, and then as more and more people get vaccinated, you can have people over that have been vaccinated, and now you can have get-togethers and gatherings. And I think that's going to be part of the reason why people start getting vaccines. I think part of the reason we're going to get to 80. I think we're going to get to 80 or close to it. A lot of people aren't sure we're going to get to 80. I think you're going to have businesses that are going to be asking people to get vaccinated because they're going to want people to get together, because that'll be the new norm for a while. Getting together in either a safe space where people are vaccinated. When you go out, you'll still be masking for a while. I mean, you'll be probably masking through the fall. Yeah, I mean, maybe into October, November. But it'll be different. It'll be where the number of cases will be very low, and the places where you have to masks are just in close proximity to other people, just in case that you're. So the worry would be that at that point the worry would be that the vaccine, it's been so long since you've been vaccinated, maybe you can get a low level infection, and that low level infection might be able to be transmitted to somebody who hasn't been vaccinated. There'll be different worries, but we're going to go back to normal, quote unquote. I said last time I was on the program was October, maybe end of October, I think. And I said it'll be a year and you'll be back in the comedy clubs. I'm going to stick with it. November 1st, 2021, you're going to be in a comedy club doing stand-up comedy without a mask on.
Okay. Well, I have an outdoor show coming up in May.
You should tell people. Get them there.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. We are still in the middle of working out the details, so
don't tell people.
But we are expecting, or at least looking to bring in about 300 people outdoors. How much of a good or bad idea that is, we have to do what? We have to keep tables at a 6 feet distance, correct?
I mean, yeah, outdoors you're in a much better situation. Big difference. But I would, you try to keep tables apart. You try to keep, people are not going to really mask up if they're drinking or eating. They're just not. I did go into a restaurant in October, and I was surprised that nobody sitting at any table had a mask on. I don't know why I was surprised. They're eating their food, right? They're not. They're there to eat food, right?
What are you gonna do? Take a bite, put the mask on? That's weird.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
What are you gonna do? Pull the mask forward and feed yourself? Like, that's weird.
You get a straw.
That's weird. Like, who's doing that?
So any bar, restaurant, or if you're serving drinks and food, there's going to be people without masks. Trying to keep them apart. Yes. Try to you want to minimize any yelling. I know they're going to get excited. You're going to at your or maybe they're going to start heckling you. But maybe you could tell them they can't heckle because it transmits COVID, and that'll keep the heckling down.
And I'll be like, put a mask on it.
Exactly.
I'll be like, put a mask on that. James has another question. He said, do researchers know yet if COVID will be a seasonal problem like the flu, or it will always be with us year round? Really good question, James.
That's a good question. I don't know. I think we will be vaccinating like we vaccinate for flu for a while.
Yeah.
I think the number of people that are going to be dying of this are going to be quite low, maybe in level of what a normal flu season would be. So 10,000 people a year or 20,000, whatever it is. I mean, not in 2021. I mean, eventually.
You're talking about the influenza?
No, the coronavirus. I think coronavirus will be, it'll keep circulating. It'll keep changing a little bit. But most likely we'll be protected. We'll have some protection, so that when we get it, we won't get sick, or won't get very sick. It'll be a different. right now what's happening is that because people haven't seen this virus before, our bodies have no initial defenses against it, and that's one of the reasons people are getting so darn sick, right? But once we've seen it once and it changes, you see the variant, it changes a little bit, 17 mutations. We've seen a lot of the rest of it we've seen before, right? So maybe our immune system can react to part of it, but not all of it. And the vaccines, they can just keep changing the vaccines, just like they do with influenza.
So
To answer his question directly, I don't know if this will be seasonal or not. The seasonal is really about people going, well, they think it's about people in the wintertime going in their houses. They think it's about having less vitamin D in your body in the wintertime also, because vitamin D comes from the sun. So there's a couple different things that they think is going on in the wintertime, which is what seasonal respiratory viruses are all about.
Mm-hmm.
Coronaviruses will likely fall into that, but I don't know.
Coronaviruses. Okay. So, but are we talking about then people getting vaccinated every year, just like they get vaccinated for flu, then you go vaccination for COVID?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so it's just another just kind of a virus we just tag along. We're like, all right, people, we're just gonna get vaccinated. It's not the same as when the polio virus came out. It's not the same. Polio was you just get one shot, you're good, right? It's not, you don't have to keep getting vaccinated. It's not having these different variants popping up, right?
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's just one. Do it.
Yeah, you're talking about the difference in those viruses is really about how easily they can make variants. Right. Coronaviruses make it very easily, and polioviruses do not. They do not make it easily.
Let's go back to the wet market question. So if we are already having a vaccine, the vaccines that we have come up already, if the wet market still exists and that kind of stuff is still going down between bats and pangolins and chickens and all these animals just being, I mean, are we not already still looking at creating like a super friggin' virus like COVID-3 or COVID, COVID back with a vengeance? Like, what are we looking at here?
I think that I predict that I don't know how this would happen. I think that China is going to have to decide how they're going to run these markets. I think they're going to have to make a decision about. I mean, they could just have a chicken market and so what they do is they have the market is in walking distance of all these people, and people want to eat different things, but they're going to have. I think they're going to have to keep the animals. My personal opinion, they're going to have to keep them separated if they want to continue to sell live animals, which is what they want to do. They're going to have to come up with some plan that's not this. This is not
right.
This is not the way to do it.
Right. I mean, look, Wuhan was the first one to get hit, right? I mean, the very first Chinese doctor who alerted the world, sadly, that doctor himself died, right? He was going around alerting the world. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is really the responsibilities on the Chinese government to be like, hey, we can't have these fucking ongoing pandemics. Like, we gotta control this. This is insane. It kills our people.
It's a matter of separating species. It's hard to do, right? It's not simple. Like for a lot of the influenza has nothing to do with the wet markets. That has to do with the fact that they keep pigs in near the rice paddies, and there's ducks there. So you get duck viruses and pig viruses. So there's a lot of mixture of viruses. That's actually the problem of different species. But if you can keep the species apart, like we do in a lot of other countries, then what happens is it doesn't happen, right? The ducks don't come in contact with the pigs.
Right.
The pangolins don't come in contact with the bats.
Right.
And I don't know, it's hard. It's going to be really hard for them because they have so many people and they have this established system of what they do.
Right.
But I think they really need to figure out a new plan for how to do this. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I shouldn't say that.
Right.
I think that it's something that they should be looking at.
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, it affects their people. Like it affects their economy. I mean, it's the bottom line for every country, right? Every country's economy has taken a giant hit. Not
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos. He's doing just fine. But everybody else is, and Elon Musk. Those two dudes are doing great. But everybody else is straight up eating crap. Like it sucks. It freaking sucks.
Wouldn't it be
Uh,
nice if Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk were actually nice people? Wouldn't that be better?
I actually follow Elon because I'm a big fan of his. I think what he's doing for humanity is great. But that's just kind of my opinion.
Well, he's not. I mean, I don't think. Would anybody say he's a nice person? He's a good-hearted person, though. I mean,
I don't know if he is. I don't know personally. I don't know anybody who knows him.
Well, okay. I've seen him on interviews. I should say. I'm basing it on it.
And what has been your consensus?
He's the self-centered jerk.
I don't know. Recently, just on a side note, there's recently been an article that came out, and they talked about how so many CEOs and executives and entrepreneurs, even who are become mega successful, tend to be on like that a little like are on the narcissistic, sociopathic spectrum. Like that's kind of what it takes to be like, fuck everybody. I'm going to the top. Like, whose head can I step on to get to the next level? But then I kind of do an aerial shot of that, and I'm just like, okay, I know it's like shitty, and maybe people don't like his personality, but man, he's gonna like take us from Los Angeles to London in 30 minutes with his rocket space. Like, sign me up. Like, how much time do we waste in traveling? Now I can go from Los Angeles to London in 30 minutes and be shot in space, and it'd be like, bam, 30 minutes, we're there. Sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, the technology is great. I'm not saying anything about his technology. I'm talking about his personality.
Right, but his personality is the one that led for him to, get to this kind of stuff and make this kind of money. Is kind of what.
Yeah, but do we really want? I mean, for technology and companies, whatever, that's fine, I guess. But I mean, do we really want people like that running the country? I mean,
he's not running the country.
And how come it's almost always men that have this personality type? Why can't we have more women running things? Wouldn't everything be better?
Go ask your gender, Don. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. I don't know anything. I'm just asking questions over here.
Me too. That's exactly what I'm doing. Asking questions. You want to move on to the next slides?
Yeah, and then I'll just do one more, and then just what do we got? What's the timing? How are we looking?
We're a little over. We're hour 7 in. But I would love to go and explore some of the other slides because this is just really great information.
So okay, we'll go really fast.
We have another. We can spend another 5-10 minutes kind of showing it and talking about it. So
I'll just do this. This is an interesting slide.
Okay, let's do it.
Last one. You see, is it coming through?
Yep, here we go.
So here we have, let's see if I can get it to this thing. Here we have a figure that I adapted from, oh no, I cut off the bottom. Did somebody else put this together? I did not. But what you see here is a kind of an outline of all the different variants that exist that people are tracking. And what I want to do is I just want to do quickly kind of go through a little bit of how this is done, so you get a sense of that. My dogs are barking in the back of my.
It's okay.
Hopefully you can hear it.
I think they're cheering on.
Yeah. So basically, this is the kind of the first variant, A1. It's from Seattle. That's actually just a couple miles from me. It was the very first isolate. It doesn't exist anymore. And how do we know about this? How do we know this doesn't exist? So remember I told you it's like a fingerprint, right? So you can follow these based on these mutations and these fingerprints, right? So A23, this was isolated in Liverpool. And then you have this one, this B virus, and it was isolated in Europe. And each one of these little nodes, these little circles, represents a kind of where all these variants kind of go back to what's called a common ancestor. So they all go back to like a common spot. Right? So what's interesting about this figure is that they've identified 2 variants of concern that they're or 2 mutations that are of concern, and one is this mutation in red, and one is this mutation in blue. And the blue one is the one I pointed out before, the N501Y one.
That's right.
And that's associated with increased transmissibility. And the red one, I don't know if I can make it any bigger. The red one is associated with antibody resistance, meaning that if you've already been infected, you can more easily get infected a second time with this red one. So, and then you can see the circles on they're underneath here. Okay, like B1351. This is the one from Africa, South Africa. The one we talked about was B117, which is this group here.
Which came from Europe.
Which came from Europe. It's in Europe and Denmark. There's some interesting ones here in B117. I'm sorry. This is the one we were talking about. This has actually an increase in associated with transmissibility and a mutation associated with antibody resistance, both. So that's why one of the reasons it's a variant of concern. There's an interesting one here. This one here from Denmark is found in mink. So they actually had a mink farm that got infected, and a lot of the mink got really sick. And they ended up having to, in Denmark, they had all these mink farms, and a lot of the animals had to be put down because of the coronavirus, which is not good for farmers, not good for mink. And this is what the RNA looks like down here. And I just want to I know I'm not trying to give a biochemistry lecture here, but this is just kind of bringing it all the way back. So each one of these RNA molecules is like a string of letters, a string of biochemical molecules. And each biochemical molecule has a letter associated with it. Guanine, uridine, adenine. And you can actually see, this is what they sequence, and this is how they find the fingerprints. It's like what they do for, if you ever watch a murder show or whatever, and they want to know if somebody committed a murder and they have blood or whatever. But now they're doing it with viruses, and this is a way to actually track. And then you can see there's a virus from Brazil that they're worried about. There's a virus from England they're worried about. A virus from South Africa. There's a new one in New York that they found that they have some concern about. And they can follow these viruses of concern, and they can keep track of them, and they can see if they're, and what it all comes down to for me is whether or not they're actually resistant to antibodies developed from vaccines. And it's my dog. And so I think the right now, the vaccines that have been studied have shown that they can make antibodies, make immune responses that can work on most of these variants, or all these variants for Moderna and Pfizer. They seem to be pretty good with all these variants. The Johnson & Johnson one, they're not sure about some of the variants, how well it's going to do, the South African variant, for example. But I think overall, I think we can feel really good that the vaccines are going to be at least somewhat protective against, if not all, most of these variants. And all the vaccine companies need to do is to make a new vaccine that has the new, just like you would make a new flu virus. We've got flu vaccine every year, right? New flu vaccine because there's a new strain of flu. Make a new vaccine. That's all they would need to do. And they can get them approved really quickly.
I mean, when you're talking about, like just create a new vaccine, with a new strain, new variant. But right now, just like you said, there's the one from South Africa that's of concern, the one from Kent, there's a new one they found in New York, and the one from Brazil. So as the vaccines sit currently, the Johnson & Johnson one, the Pfizer, the Moderna, are those gonna be good against these, or
so far so good. Yeah, there's some evidence that the Johnson & Johnson one did not perform very well in South Africa. They're worried it's because of that variant that happens to be there. They're trying to find, if it's the case. They're still doing some research, but that is the only thing that I have heard that makes me think that we need to really worry. I can tell you that there's there's some studies that are out showing that there's lower. So you have like an immune response that can be quantified. I'm going to take this off. You have an immune response that can be quantified, right? So you can quantify, and you can actually say, let's take the original variant that they're studying, and they can say that the immune response to that is at level 10.
Okay.
And then they could say, what's the immune response? And there's a way to actually quantify that against in the laboratory, not in the people. And you can quantify it in the laboratory against another strain, right? and you get immune response. So you give the vaccine, and you test it against the original. It's a 10, so it's really good. 10 is great. 10 is the best. Then you go and you put it up against another strain like South Africa, and they don't get a 10, you get a 7.
Okay.
So the question is 7 enough? And so far, it looks like 7 is going to be enough, at least to keep people from getting severe symptoms.
Got it. So then you may have some symptoms if you have a 7, but not to the point where you're going to be hospitalized and die.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying. So, again, this is all new stuff. So, this is what we know. This is what I know right now based on what I've seen.
Right.
Could change tomorrow.
Right.
But, yeah.
One of the things, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was telling her that my understanding of the vaccines is for the Moderna and the Pfizer is that the second shot that you get is the actual low dosage of the live virus. Is that not true?
That is not true.
Okay, so please do explain. So what's the difference between the first and the second? Why the first and the second?
Because they're identical, the same thing. It's no different. People, in fact, when you go to get your vaccine, they'll have the syringes will all be done. They'll be in like in a row, all ready to go. They've been prepared in another room, and you'll come in and you'll be getting your second, and they'll give you their shot, and the person next to you will be getting their first, and they'll get their shot. Same syringes, one after the other. They're all the same. So what they're doing is they're doing a prime and a boost. So this is a standard vaccine trick or vaccine thing that they do. So you want to get the immune system going, and then you can actually follow the response. You can actually see it go up, and then you can see it go down. And then you can give a boost the second time, say it's 4 weeks later or 3 weeks later, and then it goes up even higher. And now instead of going back down, it actually stays up. And that's why they do it, because you get a better response and it lasts longer. It's how your immune system gets trained.
Got it. So it's not an actual live, low dosage of the virus. That's not the case at all.
It is not the case at all. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a attenuated virus, but it's not coronavirus. It's an adenovirus subtype 26.
Okay.
It's not. It's a completely different virus, but it's not a coronavirus. It does not have. It just has that spike protein, just like the Moderna and the Pfizer ones do.
Right.
So
is it as effective as Moderna and Pfizer?
Almost. I actually have vaccine slides I didn't show.
I was really interested in that.
It's maybe it's a little late in the program, but
I understand.
Yeah,
the vaccines really fascinate me. I mean, the reason that I wanted to actually talk about the vaccines is because I know I have a lot of friends who are just like, we're not getting vaccinated. I'm scared. So I have a friend of mine. She's 55. She got vaccinated. The first one made her really sick. She got the Pfizer. And she said, I had vomiting the first day I got it. I had diarrhea. I had body fatigue. So her body responded pretty kind of badly to the Pfizer. The second one, she was like, it was all right. It wasn't as severe at all. Like my body was had adjusted by then. So her older son is a dental student. And he's about to graduate and stuff. And his immune system and her immune system was very similar. They kind of get affected by the same thing. So he saw her being affected that when he's like, screw this, I'm not getting vaccinated. Now, and the reason that I wanted to bring up the vaccine thing, because there are a lot of people who are really freaked out about getting vaccinated. They're like, oh my God, what if the vaccine is worse than actually getting COVID? This is an actual thing that is going around.
Yeah, I know. It's getting, all I can say is COVID is much worse. I mean,
right.
Or at least you have a chance that COVID, if you're in the 50% that get sick, or if you're in the 30% that get really sick, or if you're in the 1.5% that die, COVID is worse. Okay.
Right.
So the symptoms weren't that bad. I mean, it wasn't, I know one day after the second shot for me, and I even worked half that day. It wasn't completely ridiculous. And then it's done, at least for me. I don't know about your friend.
Right.
But I mean, people are going to say things, it's going to get, look, if you look at, they actually have a chart that shows how people's attitude about the vaccine has changed, even since like January, like a month and a half ago or whatever. It's changed a lot. There's a lot of people that were saying that they were very hesitant, and now that group is much smaller. It's so even in this period of time, it's all moving in the right direction, even though people are having symptoms.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
but
well, my thing is that I would love to bring you on again, maybe in a couple of months or maybe a month or so. I mean, I would love to bring you on in a month or so, mainly because what's happening in Texas is really alarming. And what worries me is because people travel back and forth. People are going to be traveling from Dallas. They're going to come to LA, to New York, or wherever they're going to be traveling. And now they're carrying a new mutation, a new variant of the virus because it's getting spread because dumb Governor Abbott thinks that it's a freaking good idea right now to open up his entire state, which is horrifying to me. It just simply is.
I agree.
It's horrible.
I agree. Maybe we could do is like a track Texas for the next 2 months. We'll compare it against Washington and California, and we'll see.
Yes.
We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. Washington's open up some things as well, but everything's very gradual here. I don't know about California, where you guys are.
I mean, Cali right now, the gyms are not open. Only outdoor gyms are. Social distancing, mask is required. Outdoor restaurants open, I believe, at 25% capacity. Again, masking, social distancing. And indoor entertainment is absolutely a no-go. That's not happening. Outdoor entertainment, you kind of have to get permission and see like how it's set up, like in city by city. So they kind of are basing it off that. But we are, we are far from out of the woods yet. We are far from out of the woods. We are not out of the woods yet. So I think people just need to be reminded that, especially the folks who are out in Santa Monica. And
give us 6 weeks. Give us 6 weeks to get the vaccine to people. That's all we need. I mean, it's going to be so different in April 20th. It's just going to be so different. And then we could probably be like, again, with people, if everybody does what Texas is doing, it won't be. But by the end of the summer, we could be in a completely different, you might be in a comedy club in September. All right, it could happen.
Well, you said October. We're going to be back in comedy clubs in October.
I've been saying October, but I've been hoping it's actually September.
September. Okay, all right. You said September. So we have this on recording. You have
it. It's there. I have it. If it doesn't come true, but keep me on October though, just in case.
Oh, now we're going back to October. Okay, October.
No, I haven't changed. I'm still October. Well,
I honestly, in my personal opinion, I don't think we're going to comedy clubs until 2022. But that's just me.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who's right.
Yeah, we'll see. But I would love to bring you back on again. This was a absolutely lovely and such an informative conversation. So thank you so much for putting together those slides and coming back on again. This was lovely. So thank you so much.
Yeah, nice seeing you again. And no problem at all, of course. Just see you in a couple months or next month.
Yep, I'll see you in a couple months. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Take care, you too. Oh my God. I hope you guys learned a lot. I mean, I learned so much today. I thought I knew stuff, but then I didn't. And this is why I invite my brilliant guests, because I don't know a lot, which is why I have to, rely on smarter people than myself to educate me. You guys, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. It would really mean the world to me. You can go to youtube.com/Mona Shake Comedian. You can also follow me on TikTok and Facebook for the same name, Mona Shake Comedian, and as well as on Twitter and Instagram at Mona's Comedy. I will be back with the wonderful Johnny Wendell talking about the disastrous CPAC. You guys have a good evening. James said, thanks, Mona and Dr. Sodora. Great chat. Yes, very informative. Lovely. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Guys, have a good evening. I will see you tomorrow. Good night.